Welcome to my first foam weapon build video, and frankly my first foam weapons ever. I decided that my Displacer Beast character, Locusta, needed a little something extra to pose with at conventions, and after a little searching I landed on this short, scythe-like blade called a kama. Their small size and hooked shape plays well into my character's profession as a thief, and it turned out that they were pretty easy to pack and to make. Making these kama is very straightforward. The materials I use are 1/2-inch PVC pipe, EVA foam mats, spray Plastidip in black, silver spray paint, a mix of acrylic paints, and a clear coat. I also got some black leather strips and string. Oh, and some wood varnish. For my pattern, I went the easy route and found a nice picture of a kama blade online via Google search. To shape the handles, I first had to cut the PVC pipe to length. The pictures I followed show that the handles needed a slight curve to them, not unlike an axe handle. I haven't done a lot of heating of PVC pipe before, so I would recommend that you be patient and let the pipe heat up thoroughly. Trying to bend it against my knee when it wasn't ready to go was just an exercise in frustration. When it is hot enough, it becomes soft enough to shape fairly easily, but it is kind of a matter of trial and error. I would also recommend that you wear a mask. PVC fumes are terrible for you. I used my handsaw to cut marked notches out of the top of the handles and then cleaned up the cuts with my rotary tool. PVC is pretty soft to cut, it's not that bad, but I'm not that good at making nice straight cuts, unfortunately. So it did take a little bit of effort and a lot of cleanup. Next, I decided to cut out the blades. This step was very simple. I just used my pattern to trace out the shape of the blades and cut them out with a razor blade. I took a couple of passes, the first to make sure I got the right lines and the second to cut all the way through. It's probably ideal to make the cut in one go, but I knew that I would be doing a lot more finishing, so it didn't really matter too much. One of the problems with the EVA mats is that one side has a textured surface. I had planned to remove it with my rotary tool, but it wasn't strong enough, so I took my angle grinder to the blades. Obviously that caused a lot of damage, but at least I got the idea to pre-smooth the foam with my angle grinder before cutting it. I also marked out where the blade needs to be thinned down on each side of the foam to give me some idea of what needed to be trimmed. I did this based on the pattern by cutting away the part of the paper covering the sharper side of the blade and then tracing that line in. So now I can go straight into doing more detailed work with my rotary tool. We head back outside to shape the foam into the blades of my kama. I wanted to keep a decent amount of thickness because I didn't know how sturdy the EVA foam would be if I made it very thin, so I just started out by smoothing down the sharp edges. Then I moved on to slowly carving the bottom edge to be narrower and narrower, following my guidelines. I kept flipping the blade back and forth to try and keep everything even. And so here we have a quick shot of my heat gun sealing up the holes in the foam so I can spray it with Plastidip. But first, let's move on to the handles. I was attempting to get a wood grain and wood color onto my handles, and so I followed a tutorial I found on Instructables to get that effect. I started by scoring up the PVC with 100 grit sandpaper, followed by a finer 200 grit or so to try and clean up the burring. I found that cleaning up the burring actually wasn't effective and just tended to remove the damage I had added with the first sandpaper. So I ended up adding more small cuts and damage with a razor blade as well as the first sandpaper between coats of varnish, and that was pretty effective. The varnish itself is a wood varnish and was really challenging to work with since it obviously doesn't soak into plastic the way it would normally with wood. But I found several coats with long drying periods between them worked out okay. I also tried to make some parts darker or lighter and beat it up a little bit with the sandpaper in between layers, and the overall result, at least from a distance, is definitely wood-like. The resulting color was more purple than I had intended, but it totally fits the color scheme of my character. After 4 or 5 coats of black Plastidip to seal the EVA foam, and a couple layers of silver spray paint, I settled in to finish painting and detailing my blades. I didn't want to add crazy battle damage, so all I had to do was darken up the silver a bit to give the blades some shape and depth. I particularly wanted to darken the upper part of the blade to make the sharp side appear shinier and more deadly. I used the acrylic paints in black, white, pearly white, and a silver color, and I started with a black wash that I spread onto the blades and then wiped off a few times. When I was satisfied with that, I used the pearl and silver colors to shine up the sharp edges. The process was really just layering the colors together until I got something that felt metallic. I finished the entire thing off with a few coats of a shiny clear coat, which you should definitely wear a respirator if you're gonna spray it. The blades, ultimately, they don't look chrome, but they do look really nice, and I think fit well with the overall aesthetic of my character. Finally, we get to the finishing touches and putting everything together. Painting and drying took a while, but once everything was complete, I wrapped the bottom portion of the handle in black leather and tacked it in place with clear glue. After fitting the blades into the notches on the top of the handles, I found some black bookbinder's thread I had laying around the house and wrapped it around the blades as if the thread was holding them in place. I tacked that down with clear glue as well, and overall, I think the result is really nice. I am very pleased with the results of this experiment in foam weapon building. They were very simple to make, but they add an extra dimension to my character that allows her to be more dynamic for posing. I also was able to add loops to my belt for the costume, and I could deploy the weapons with a snap, which kind of gave me a little bit of like a quick draw effect when I was using the costume in the Worldcon presentation. Ultimately, I'm really thrilled with how these worked out, and I really look forward to diving into making more foam props and making them better. Thank you for watching my video. If you have any questions about what I've made, or if you have any suggestions on things that I could be doing better that you can do in a 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a building, then I would love to hear them in the comments below. So please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you all later with my next squirrel-brained idea.